Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Immersive Tech Talk podcast series presented by VRD Health Tech. I'm Sherry Marion, CEO of VRD Health Tech, and we're so pleased to have our host, Professor Skip Rizzo, who will be engaging in dialogue with various experts in the digital mental health field across the course of the podcast series. Professor Rizzo will interview today's amazing guests from the Veterans Health Administration, Dr. Susan Kirsch, Dr. Ann Lord Bailey, and Caitlin Rawlins. Before we start the discussion, let me introduce you to VRD Health Tech. VRD Health Tech is an accelerator for the adoption of immersive technology by partnering with emerging application creators to market, sell, onboard, and train users in health and wellness solutions. We offer these applications to hospitals, clinics, educators, and corporations to benefit their patients, students, clients, and their community. VRD is proud to have the support and guidance from experts in virtual reality, such as our host, Professor Skip Rizzo. Skip Rizzo is a professor at USC and director of medical virtual reality. He serves as an advisor and chief science officer for our partner, Cognitive Leap, exploring methods to address attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in children. Joining Dr. Rizzo today are guests from the Veterans Health Administration. The VHA is America's largest integrated healthcare system, providing care at 1,380 healthcare facilities, including 170 medical centers and 1,193 outpatient sites of care of varying complexity, serving 9.1 million enrolled veterans each year. So to save as much time as possible for the discussion, I'm going to provide abbreviated bios for our guests today. Our guests are so impressive and have such extensive backgrounds, we could use all the time just in the introductions. Hopefully you've had a chance to be able to read their backgrounds from the emails and posts we've sent out. First is Dr. Susan Kirsch, who exemplifies a career devoted to service, particularly in the area of patient access to care. She currently serves as Deputy Assistant Undersecretary for Health for Discovery, Education, and Affiliate Networks, with responsibility for research, health professions training, and innovations across the Veterans Health Administration. During her 25-year career there, she practiced as an internist for many years and has led multiple groundbreaking initiatives. Dr. Kirsch received her Doctor of Medicine degree from the Medical College of Ohio in Toledo, Ohio. She earned her Master of Public Health from Case Western University in Cleveland, Ohio. She is a professor of medicine at Case Western Reserve University and an assistant professor at Georgetown University School of Health. In 2021, our second guest, Dr. Ann Lord Bailey, became VHA's lead for immersive technology and then the first executive director of Strategic Initiatives Lab, or Strat Lab, in 2023. She's worked with experts and thought leaders in government, academia, and industry while co-leading the expansion of the VHA Extended Reality Network from the founding 5 facilities to over 170, engaging more than 2,900 VA employees and help guide implementation of immersive technology for more than 40 indications. Our third guest, Caitlin Rawlins, has been a nurse since 2011 and with the Department of Veterans Affairs since 2017. In her first year of VA practice, she initiated the first positive distraction-focused virtual reality program for pain and anxiety management in the Veterans Health Administration. Ms. Rawlins then co-led the development of the VHA Extended Reality Network and played an integral role in the creation of the VA Immersive program. She now continues to aid in leading VHA innovation and immersive technology utilization as Director of Clinical Tech Innovation, co-lead of the VHA Extended Reality Network, and Immersive Collaborations lead. During the interview, our participants who are joining us from the webinar can directly ask a question through the Q&A window, while participants from the YouTube live stream can also ask questions in the live chat. We'll have around 10 minutes at the end to ask your questions. So now let's turn it over to Skip, Susan, Ann, and Caitlin.
Okay. Well, I sound like a broken record because I probably say this at the start of all podcasts because usually the folks that come on here are also my good friends. But these are three of my favorite people that it's not only a shared vision, but a concern for veteran interests that all three of you share. And that to me is really important. And it creates a bond among people. We all know people that have this, and it's an important quality, I think, to be looking out for folks that really have put themselves in harm's way and making a difference for them. And the VA does that no matter how much, people bellyache about this and that, bureaucracy, all that. The people I know at the VA have their heart in the right place and are working hard to make a difference. And we all need to be grateful. So you guys are at the top of the heap. So anyway, all right, we're going to dive in. We had a history of each of you, but I'd like to have you each spend a minute describing yourself and, a little bit about what your view is about VR, about the VA, your current role, just a minute each, and then we'll get started with the serious questions.
I'm happy to go first. Sure. So I've been in a senior executive position for many years now, and there are a number of initiatives that I've led. I will really support what Skip is stating in that moving things from one site to many sites across the VA is not an easy task, as you alluded to with bureaucracy, but I've really found some success in doing things in that way, and it's been a lot of fun. And I moved into the office of the Research, Education, Health Professions Training, that we call it the Dean Office in VA, at the top of the executive team, one of the leaders in the executive team for the organization, and stumbled into a meeting where I was exposed to immersive technology. And I put on a headset and I met Dr. Bailey, and it just changed the way I thought about things. It just clicked for me. I saw that, and I think that Dr. Bailey, Ann and Caitlin can attest that, once I had my head in a headset, it was from then on. And we remember the moment too, because it just clicks. And we've been on the mantra to get different types of clinical leaders and administrative leaders and team members in the VA, in Congress, in our veteran service organizations to see what this is. What could this be? And the fun that I've had throughout my career has truly been to take amazing leaders like Ann and Caitlin and bring them resources and support so that we can just keep going. So this is technology as a primary care doctor that I see and have seen a lot of mental health illnesses with patients, striving to improve that health. And the use of this technology, it has so much capability now and into the future. And it's been really just fun, frankly, for me to support Ann and Caitlin and the team in getting this done.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kirsch. That was an awesome intro. So for me, I'm a pharmacy practitioner by training. A lot of people, actually a veteran told me the other day, I don't really want to have anything to do with your training, because he thought that meant that I would prioritize medication, but it's actually quite the opposite. I think a goal of us all as clinicians is to do what's best for the veteran and for patients in general. And so if there are opportunities where we can support health and well-being, and that not have to do with something that you put in your mouth or inject in your body, then even better, right? And so that has been the process that I've gotten to be a part of. It's a priority for VA. We have whole health and all these other initiatives, and immersive technology certainly fits perfectly into that approach to healthcare, where we're really empowering the veterans. It's been really exciting to see the blending of my clinical background with the excitement that I get around emerging technology and being disruptive and doing things differently. So Caitlin and I met actually at the VA in Asheville, North Carolina. Thank you to those of you who have been so supportive of Western North Carolina over the last few months. We really appreciate that. But she and I met there. I was an innovation specialist and a practicing clinician at the time. And she was starting to work with the team that she was on. I'll let her tell more of that story. But she brought to me a solution that was helping veterans enjoyed, and that was improving their care, and also did not have to do with medication, and that was VR. It's virtual reality. It was exciting to see that. And so I was able to sort of work together across the VA, we brought a community together and started to see it grow. And then met Dr. Kirsch at the very first Immersive Summit. Skip, you were there too, in 2022 in Orlando. And Susan, being who she is, she showed up, she was present, she participated, and then she and I over a barbecue sandwich at a food truck.
It's true. It's true.
It's a true story. She said, "How can I help this grow?" And so the last 3 years have just really been adrenaline infused as we have seen this organization get more excited around the expansion of this technology. And really what's behind that is veterans who are asking for more. And so whatever it takes, we're not going to stop as long as this is working and they want more of it.
Caitlin?
Well, I think what Anne said initially was a really good kind of segue into why I dove into immersive technology head first. I'm a registered nurse by clinical background, and in 2017, when I was starting my career in the VA and my first year of practice as a registered nurse, I was looking for alternatives to help with things like pain management and anxiety, because as a nurse, I spent so much time just giving out medications, and that was not the best approach to veteran healthcare. There was a better way to do things. And, long story short, I had the chief of orthopedic surgery at the time come to me and say, "Hey, my friend started this VR company. You want to check it out?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, that sounds really cool." Like, I was really into computer games growing up, and my degree prior to nursing was in art and art history. And it was like, oh, cool. Like, my worlds are colliding. Tried VR, did my own literature research, and like I said, long story short, started using it with patients. And it was those first few patients that I used VR with that like changed my mindset on how technology can be beneficial to healthcare. We think about technology that we use being the tools we use in surgery or the computers that we use at the bedside, but this all of a sudden became a very like patient-facing tool that we could use to help decrease medication use when it's unnecessary, or decrease at least the dosage that's used, or the time period, increase the time in between doses. And that's what we started seeing, like pretty much right off the bat. And so, I think there's lots of stories like that at this point, kind of across the XR network, where we hear from clinicians that have similar stories like that. So you can't really limit it to just one, but I think that's where the passion for myself stemmed from, was just seeing that firsthand. And I've never really looked back since then, because once you believe in it, persistence and patience are key, but you can make it happen.
Real quick, you've all mentioned the time that you've tried VR the first time. What do you remember? What the actual application was? What the experience was? Real quick. They got you tickled?
Mine was a patient with social phobia disorder. That was like the whole experience. And it just gave me this lens of what a patient is experiencing and how you can practice and mistakes are free, so to speak, meaning that you're not really experiencing them in real life. And so that I really have, and the therapist looked really, really so real that it just clicked for me. And so I still have like really vivid memory of that. That was more than a couple of years ago, because of how amazing I thought the experience was.
You had one of those suspension of disbelief experiences, where you go in and it's like, well, I know this is just a simulation, and all of a sudden this is like the real thing.
No, you feel like you're the patient. And then I walked into a waiting room and people were staring at me. And so it felt really very, very real. So I can understand why this has so much, has had opportunity, impact, and potential.
I remember that day too, because that was the day we went back to your office and you said, "It's like butts and seats, but it's heads and headsets." And that was, we had been looking for a hashtag, we thrown some around, but that was the one where all went, that's it. Like, that's the thing. That's it. That's exactly right. For me, it was one of those insert a phone into like the Google Cardboard with a group of kids at Christmas time. It was a roller coaster, and I thought it was kind of crazy, but at the same time, I remember thinking, for a second, I know that I'm standing in a living room surrounded by a bunch of people, but for a moment, I forgot, and that was a roller coaster. So it was really powerful. And then, so when Caitlin brought it years later in a clinical space, made that connection, it was really powerful.
Caitlin, what was your first time?
My first time was actually with the first application that I started using with veterans. And the first environment that I ended up trying was sitting by a campfire in the woods, and there was a river and rocks and the whole forest, and you could hear like owls and birds, and it was very immersive. I felt like I was all of a sudden not sitting in the hospital at my computer in the middle of an inpatient ward. I was like sitting in the woods, listening to the sounds of nature and like enjoying this fire at nighttime. And it was beautiful. And it was in that moment that I was like, wow, like this has so much potential. If I can transport my patients like out of this hospital room and to sit in the woods by a campfire instead, like how therapeutic could that possibly be? Like it has so much crazy potential. And that's just in one segment of use of this technology, like just using it for positive distraction, just getting outside of those four walls, providing positive stimuli. But just that in and of itself was just mind-boggling and so very cool.
You just cued a memory I have of work. I was trying a system developed by a company that makes an olfactory device. I think it's called OVR. And it's something you put on the headset and it puffs out little scents. And their company from Vermont, they had a forest camping trip experience. And you walk by the fire and you smell, the wood burning, and then you walk off a little bit and you smell the pine trees. And then you go back to the fire and somebody's cooking bacon. And that was what got the smell of bacon, it's like, oh man, I'm hungry. But yeah, that's part of the whole thing. I mean, you can build VR environments to help people overcome their fears. You can build VR environments to teach people skills, and you can also build these VR environments to promote a calming experience. In a way that a lot of times before you do it, you would never believe you could have that experience sitting in your office. And I think that's part of the power of this. It can transport you into these experiences. It's an experience generator. So, all right, we've heard about the spark that got you guys in the beginning. And I got to say, Anne, very similar with the cell phone applications. I did that with the Samsung Gear VR system. And I turned my nieces and nephews onto it at a Christmas thing, and it was like a fight all day over who was going to play with it.
Oh, that's right.
So we heard about your spark. Now, what do you think? And you got to speculate. What was the spark that got the VA interested as an organization? Was there someone at a higher level that said, make it so? Or what, or do we even know? Did it just happen organically?
Yeah, I think we probably all have input, and I think the answer is both. What has largely driven, I would say, the particular enthusiasm, right? Like this has been growing in the VA over the last 7 years. I think there were a few things, even BraveMind, right, in 2015, but started to really catch on in 2017 with Caitlin's project in Asheville, and then starting to build the community. So when we started seeing sites come together and celebrate and get permission from other sites based on what was happening in the VA, that was certainly a part of it. And it allowed Caitlin and me, and eventually now that our team has grown to an additional 3+ parts of other people, that we started to be able to lower the barrier for adoption. So take on some of the things that generally when it comes to emerging tech, like standard operating procedures and how do you order it, some of that not sexy stuff, we were able to make that easier. But I would say the thing that has really driven all of us for sure but the organization as a whole is the veteran stories. We've increasingly over the last 3 or 4 years been able to capture those in video and in presentations and opportunities to highlight the fact that we all signed up for this. All three of us as clinicians, I think I could say, all signed up for this because we wanted to help veterans. And also there are moments where you are looking at a patient or a caregiver face to face and you can say, I don't know what else I can do to help you. I would do anything, but I don't know what else I could do to help you. And this technology seems to be filling that gap in some really interesting and unique ways, where we're hearing over and over and over again, I tried everything and nothing else worked, but this has. And I think that's been a really powerful spark to not hear one time, but to hear weekly. We hear stories like that.
I'd love to add on, if that's okay, Skip, to jump in on this, because Anne and Caitlin aren't going to take as much credit as I think that they deserve. The stories were the thing that bound the people together, but it's really providing the platform to get the people together that the two of you did. And it seems like maybe that wasn't that big of a deal, but it was a colossal deal. I know it was because you wanted more people to share the stories, but you provided a place for them to go to connect with each other to hear those stories. And that is really the beginning of this in the VA. I saw an opportunity to accelerate the work that was being done by getting the attention of the most senior leaders and said, we got to have this Immersive Summit in Washington, D.C. A year and a half ago to get more leaders knowledgeable about this. And so I really think that that's part of the spark and the continued sparking, so to speak. I also think that if this was dependent on, like, private sector is very dependent on physicians to drive the care. This has been something that is multidisciplinary. There are nurses, recreational therapists, pharmacists, art therapists, creative art therapists, occupational therapists. There's been just an array of different types of staff, different types of mental health providers, not just the psychiatrist. As a physician, that gives opportunity to these other staff to engage with the patient and in support of the overall treatment plan that takes this to a team sport and to a whole other level. And that is something that collectively we've reflected on and try to really continue to message, that this allows an expansion of support for veterans outside of an individual practitioner. So to me, it really hits on access and something that they can't get from their physicians always.
You know, the VA actually was an innovator in VR during the Stone Age of VR. I've got a video from a Discovery Channel's documentary that I co-produced back in 2001 that has veterans from the Atlanta VA talking about their experience using virtual Vietnam, the application that Barbara Rothbaum pioneered in the first PTSD exposure therapy application. And it's a 10-minute piece actually within this episode. And you see Vietnam era veterans talking about all their experiences. I mean, in 10 minutes, you got to cover a good bit. And so you heard their stories about their experiences in war, but then their experiences while using VR and hearing them talk about it. I'll have to say, that link is up on my YouTube channel if you want to go look at it. But I think it's one of the first VA usages. And then, actually Brave Mind started in, I think, 2006, 2007, again, still primitive compared to what we can do now. But the VA has continued to drive it. Hunter Hoffman's early work was done at the VA up, I think, at Puget Sound. And there's been a whole bunch of folks that, without having the organization that you guys have put together, that community, that sense of shared purpose and the advances in the technology that make it more feasible. It was a different time back then, but the innovation was really being driven a lot due to VA focus. So that's something that folks should keep in mind. And the stories, the testimonials. I mean, I just finished writing a grant for the VA, and part of the requirement was that you can't put hyperlinks into videos because it might give you an unfair advantage with the reviewers if they see it. And I'm thinking that is a fair advantage. If I can show a video of somebody talking about a veteran talking about their experience, because that catches you. I mean, science isn't driven on testimonials. Let's get that out of the way. And we have the science. But those testimonials, hearing veterans talk about their experiences, that sells a concept in a lot of ways. That gets the human element across. And I think that's very important. So that little rule about not having videos in your grant applications, we got to do something about that.
We have to look into that. We're going to look into that.
That's a fair advantage. Yeah, I'm still tense, right? We just submitted this grant last night, so I'm still wound up from that. Okay. Now, I think part of the VA interest, of course, and you guys can speak to this, there is an assessment that the science is there. I mean, certainly we still need a lot more. We still, science never sleeps, but the science is there. Veterans like it. They want it. How much of it does the VA look at this as a branding element? Do they, do they see this as being, a bright, flashy, modern use of technology that makes it like it's not your dad's VA anymore? We're on the cutting edge, which the VA has always been on the cutting edge, by the way. But this is one of those more visible things. Can you speak to that? Do you think there's an element of that in the motivation?
Caitlin, you want to take a shot?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I feel like we'd probably be lying if we said that it doesn't play any role in healthcare. Because of course, as technology evolves, as these things become like more visible, there's so much more potential to engage like the younger population of veterans, for example, that grew up with things like this type of technology, where if, like you just said, Skip, if they see that and they're like, oh, maybe it isn't my grandfather's VA because I see they're using virtual reality headsets to now help treat veterans. So they're using AI in this capacity, or they're using this, other type of technology that maybe is more commonplace, especially in those younger generations. But I think there's an opportunity too for this technology to change the way our grandfathers view the VA, so that we're constantly, even in our older veterans' minds, trying to push forward and bring new things into their healthcare to make it even better. So I of course think there's some branding involved, but at the end of the day, it's really that's like a side effect of the overall goal of just improving veteran healthcare.
You brought up an interesting point about older veterans, because a lot of times people think, oh, older people, they're not going to adopt VR, but you do find that this is like transformative for them as well. And one of the really cool things, Billy Rutherford, who works with you guys, was talking about the honor flight simulation. And maybe you guys can describe what that is for older veterans to be able to go to like the Vietnam Memorial and so on.
That I was thinking about that earlier. That's one of the most touching moments of an experience for me, but I still can't watch that and not tear up. It really is a way to honor veterans who have served and coming kind of there might be like a World War II age cutoff, meaning that it's for some of the wars that had happened many years ago. And for the group to be brought together and to be honored for what they did, and bringing them through airports and taking them to the sites of where they served, and is a part of the ceremony that is offered. And you sometimes can see that at the Washington, D.C. airport. I've seen that many times, living here in DC, that they're landing and people are cheering and clapping for older veterans who have served. So many veterans, right, that are in an older age range are unable to really travel. They don't physically have the capability to do that. And so there is a company, and I know that Anne and Caitlin will recall more specifically than I do, but I remember that at the Immersive Summit last year, and they're taking older veterans and letting them participate in a virtual manner in that same type of ceremony. Oftentimes homebound veterans who really can't even get out of the house, yet alone travel, are able to still be respected and valued and honored as they should for their service. So I'll just stop there.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of work being done with older veterans at, I think they're pretty much, they state-supported veterans homes and hospitals with VR as a way to give them some respite from the day-to-day experiences that they may have by giving them a headset, and they get to, go to different places with spherical video and all kinds of neat stuff. I actually grew up in my hometown. A little shout out to Rocky Hill, Connecticut, was the very first veterans home and hospital. So we had veterans in our small little farm town all the time, and I kind of grew up around that, and so I was very touched to see that was being attended to. It just wasn't the youngins getting the new technology. So, all right, what are the, let's jump to some of the challenges here, because this is hard work. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges in getting this to scale? I mean, you've made a tremendous advance. Maybe COVID helped drive it a little bit. Maybe that was part of the thing. You made tremendous advances in the last 3 or 4 years, but what still needs to be done? What are the big things? What keeps you up at night? Anyone?
I'll jump off the cliff first, and then they can reel me back in. For us, Skip, this well, you've heard us say it, and there's so many things that, wanted to add in as commentary. But one is, we have never been a funded program. We continue to, our facilities, our local medical centers find ways to fund these at their site sometimes, or importantly, I don't think this is a small thing. I think it's really important. VA is a complex organization, but we have these offices of subject matter experts, if you will. So offices of pain management, office of mental health, office of physical medicine and rehabilitation. And they've seen the value. Assault and harassment prevention office is another one, veterans experience office. They have seen the value of the technology and the opportunity, and have had some funding along the way, and have also said, we're not the experts in the technology though. And so that is VA working together in its strength, where we come together, where there's some resources available, there's expertise, and ultimately to solve the problem at the other end for the end user, our veterans and our staff. And so that continues to be a challenge though, because we don't have that sustainable model yet. And we're still working on it. I am, relentlessly optimistic that we will get there, that we'll find the way to make that happen, in no small part because of leaders like Dr. Kirsch. And then the other thing I think, and this gets a little bit to the branding piece too, is we've never really wanted this to be just another flashy object, another shiny object, right? Like fish get hooked by shiny objects, and then we know what happens to them next. So we don't want this to be a shiny object. We genuinely, when we say defining a new reality in healthcare delivery and experience, that's what we mean. We want this to just be normal. And so we've tried to do both, like leverage the excitement and enthusiasm, but at the same time, help people understand we don't think this is a trend that's going to fall off. We think this is a new way to do this. And our friends in AI, they've got a lot of attention and a lot of engagement. And sometimes we artificially separate the two. And so I think that creates unnecessary challenges. I think more and more we've got to pull AI and immersive together, and then we're off to the races, right?
I'll chime in briefly and say, I think that having an operating model and executive leadership willing to buy into this to be distributed in a standardized way, we have been on our way there, and the budget crunch, which is given to us by the Congress, has slowed down and has slowed down some of our efforts. It's not that we haven't really collectively, the three of us, thought about what is it that we need to do to make this standardized and easy to get. And so the thinking is there. It's a little slower than what we would like around the resource support for it. But the three of us, which I think you know, are really don't take it easily to just back off and slow down. There's too much of a need. Veterans need us in mental health and in other areas to keep going. And we are going to figure it out and continue to look for ways to develop this in a standardized way with, with looking toward guidelines and looking toward how do we make this work across the organization and working across healthcare to get payment for this, to be able to, keep driving forward. And so that's where we're at there. Caitlin, if you want to comment on that too.
Well, first and foremost, I was just going to say, well, we're nothing if we aren't scrappy, right? We can be very scrappy when we need to be.
That's right.
I agree with everything both of you said about, some of those challenges and kind of what we need to do to push this forward. And it very much is about making it easier folks to make this a normal part of clinical practice or non-clinical practice, depending on, what section of VA it is. A lot of those, Anne mentioned earlier, a lot of those like unsexy things about making this normal are creating those guidelines and SOPs and getting clinical program offices on board with supporting it, making it easier for ordering, making it easier for veterans to access it. And all of those things are in the works, like we have various things that are already in motion to try to make those things possible. I think at this point, it's really just a matter of doing so quickly enough in a very special environment. We'll call the government environment a very special environment, trying to do it quickly enough to match the speed of changing technology so that we don't fall behind, but we're staying ahead of it and constantly bringing the newest and best ways of improving healthcare to our patients. And that's, I think one of the most difficult things about technology is just trying to stay ahead of it and make sure that you're doing so in the right way.
Well, we do know that advances really only come from taking on adversity, and you guys are like pit bulls on ankles. I see that all the time in all the different activities that you facilitate and everything that goes on. And it is difficult when your budget is, not what it should be, I think.
It's a little cramped. That's
yeah,
what I think.
yeah. So you gotta make up with passion what you don't get in the dollars, I guess. But I mean, I know you can't speculate on politics, but do you think there's going to be much of a change in the next administration? Do you think there'll be an interest in technology with some of the people?
Since I probably live this more day to day lately than Anne and Caitlin, I'll comment that in the last Trump administration, there was definitely increased opportunity to collaborate with businesses and to bring businesses in as partners. And that could be very positive for us and this work in Immersive. I also hope that the regulation for advancing technology who has worked in our system has been in a research agreement with us, has demonstrated success for it to be able to move to a purchased product. And that is really challenging these days, is really, really challenging. And so I think there could be opportunity here. It is a shift in the way we think about things. But if it can accelerate the partnership with companies that can help us and at different levels, and decrease the barriers around the regulations and the oversight of jumping through a number of hoops to get a procurement, then I'd say let's go. Right, Ann?
Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely say let's go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what percent of the applications that you use at the VA actually come from academic labs versus companies?
That is an Ann and Caitlin kind of question on there.
That's a good question. I do want to say, I think, Susan, you made me think of this, that we would also not, the community within VA has certainly been a force to be reckoned with, right? That has been really powerful in how so much of this has happened. But also the broader community. I mean, Skip, you, Walter, Jeremy, you guys who are just legends in the space have come alongside us from the beginning. You sort of threw it out there as facts, but you've been prioritizing veterans and military personnel since the beginning. And so your passion for this technology and the support of those who have chosen to serve our country, I think, is no small piece. We would not be here without you. And that is true also for this industry that is largely startups. It's largely people that have, I love, and Dr. Kirsch got to experience this too at some of our conferences that are very immersive tech, VR focused, where we get to talk to some of these startup companies and hear their background. And what they've come from and why they've chosen to be here. And without that participation alongside the VA, we also would not be where we are as an organization. And I would say, Caitlin, I would love your input on this for sure. I think it's been largely startup companies, but certainly with an intermingling of academic support, right?
Agreed.
The evidence certainly being part of it, but largely startup companies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I would agree
that
with
was
that.
my impression. Oh, go ahead, Caitlin. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say I would agree with that. And I think even some of those companies that are a little bit further along, I don't think they got where they are without probably academic support and also like a lot of input when they were at the early stage.
Yeah.
There's some companies we've been working with for years that we've seen grow significantly. But I would agree. I think a lot of it is startups. And I think part of, I think one thing about that is that I think the VA is kind of uniquely positioned to work with a lot of even some of those early stage companies, especially through the mechanisms we have, like in the Office of Healthcare Innovation and Learning, the cooperative research and development agreements that we have formed with various companies over the years to really allow us to work together to build better solutions for healthcare. And not just, a one-off contract to purchase an off-the-shelf product, but really like, let's think about how do we make this the best possible solution? And like I said, I think we're uniquely positioned to do that.
Well, you're bringing up a very important topic that I wanted to touch on, and that was the Made for VA initiative, because that really strikes me as the roadmap for not just getting things into the VA, because there are challenges besides doing the science and making something cool. You got to make it usable. You got to make it so clinicians can easily adopt it into their practice, where it takes a brick off their pile rather than adding a brick on it. And the Made for VA initiative, which I like to hear you describe a little bit, I think is the beginning of that will drive how companies orient to VA products or developing VA products, but as sort of, again, as a model for all of healthcare, because it's a problem you see in any major healthcare institution that's trying to implement VR, the challenges of this kind of integration of a new technology. That's very powerful, but if you don't know how to use it, or the tool is not usable, or not easily usable, it takes a ton of training. Well, anyway, go. You guys,
I was
anybody
going
wanna
to
take that on?
comment very quickly about the absolute importance of the companies that we've been working with and open to additional. They take our feedback, as Caitlin mentioned, and then integrate that into the product. Again, taking the brick off, making it easy, and listening to our feedback. And that is why it is working with veterans and with clinical staff or administrative staff, because they are learning what our needs are. And it's really that relationship, that working together, collaborating, I should say, that will lead to the best tools and the increased level of adoption. And that is what we strive for in all of these technologies. And as we move toward personalization with the incorporation of AI, that will be even more important, how we work with some of these academic organizations, institutions, as well as companies. But Anne, do you want to speak to some of how we're thinking about Made for VA?
Yeah, I think everything you were just saying is exactly why we knew the Made for VA guidelines would be important, as well as what we've heard, Skip, from you and so many of our collaborators outside the VA, and that is this space right now is very much the Wild West. And so for industry, for academics, but also for our patients have given us that feedback as well. I use this device and then I use this device and they're different. Why are they different? I want the same experience. I think Walter Greenleaf talks about if you rent a car, you should be able to drive any rental car, even though you may have to learn a few different things. And so we want to take immersive technology in that direction. And we think that VA, again, is uniquely positioned to do that because of our size and scale, and also because of our experience over the last several years. And so when we say Made for VA guidelines, one of the things we want to make very clear is they're not just for VA. And we also know what people say behind our backs, because we say it too, which is if you can do it in the government, then surely you can do it anywhere. And so that's sort of our thought process behind calling it Made for VA, because it's like, well, if I align with these guidelines and this guidance, and it will work in the VA, then surely it will work at Cleveland Clinic and Mayo Clinic and Kaiser Permanente and St. John's Hospital in my parents' hometown of 3,500 people, right? And that is our ultimate goal, is that we'll do the heavy lifting on the front end, not by ourselves. These guidelines came and were inspired by and have been informed by veteran feedback, clinician feedback, our immediate collaborators and partners, people we have an agreement with, and then opened it to public comment because we want people to contribute and be a part of this process. You'll see those come out in the next month or two. And then you'll it's a living document. Guidelines are not static. And so they won't be all inclusive and all comprehensive, but they will start to tame the Wild West while also love her, but leave her wild, right? We want to give parameters and guidance. We also want to maintain some space for innovation and agility. So that's what we hope to see happen in the Made for VA guidelines. A special appreciation for all of you on this call, even who have contributed to those so far. So we'll look forward to getting those out to you in the next month or two.
Well, the elephant in the room now is 2 letters, AI. You mentioned this earlier, Anne, about, well, that or maybe it was Susan, but the whole idea about how, that's maybe sucking up some of the attention and so on, which, we don't thrive on that. We don't live on that worry about, oh no, they're getting more attention, because it's a partner technology. It's an enabling technology. The use of AI to create content or to quantify performance or to, be able to visualize things that we couldn't even think of 3 years ago, 2 years ago, even. It's a tremendous productivity enhancer and goes right along with VR. And of course, my interest in AI is in the development of virtual humans that you can have credible interactions with, that can fill in gaps, not replace clinicians, like the Battle Buddy project and so on. What are your thoughts about where AI is going to take us? I just saw National Academy of Science put out, if you don't have it, I'll send it to you, a report on the future of work, AI and the future of work. It's really compelling. And FDA just convened a panel on, regulations that are sensible for the use of AI, not just to clamp down on it, but to balance benefit and risk, because everybody recognizes such significant benefits that could happen, but also we got a hell of a lot of risks that we've got to manage here. What do you guys think on this? How do you see this all coming together?
So I was at that National Academy meeting, and it was really fascinating because there was Google and AWS, and there was Epic and Oracle, Cerner, and then a number of different healthcare providers, systems, and a lot of the associations of academic, head of nursing, head of pharmacy, head of, associations like that. I think that we came, in my experience, and I was only there the second day, to the conclusion that it would be great if AI was used, as you point out, an assistant to help all of us do our jobs better, not replace our jobs. There may be times with administrative functions that it could really replace some administrative function, but again, it's in the spirit of helping us do our work better, easier. There was a lot of discussion about how to use AI to support training. And again, not as a replacement, but as a tool that can facilitate and augment the way that we learn. So that was some of the spirit of the conversation. And there's going to be more to come from that National Academy work group. It had Peter Lee from Microsoft as one of the chairs of that work group, and continuing to think about implications for the workforce, from clinical, administrative, and then trainees in health professional, realm, how that can be helpful. But I want to turn it over to Caitlin or Anne, if you want to comment on that. Caitlin?
I had one comment, because I've noticed, working with immersive technology for years now, that certain agencies or certain healthcare organizations, et cetera, start viewing the technology as like a standalone thing, but that's really not what it's about. You can't really view it as a standalone thing. It's really about, looking at the potential of this technology combined with other technology, combined with other interventions, combined with best practices, and all of those things combined becoming the future of healthcare. So, I think, when we look at just immersive tech or just AI, all together, they end up being a larger tool that we can use in healthcare, that I think whenever we view it as like a standalone object, standalone thing, that's the end all be all, then the big picture really isn't grasped. And I think, immersive technology, AI, I think all of those things are very valuable tools in this larger bucket of tools that I hope we really learn how to use it in practice just as well as the other things once thought of, maybe as far reaching. And now we're bringing all these new things in, these new tools. It's not any different from bringing in the electronic health record or just computers into clinical practice.
Wearable sensors.
Wearable sensors, those things aren't the end all be all by itself, but really just part of the big picture of what makes up healthcare.
Integration. And you got a comment on this?
No, I mean, I agree with what they're saying. It's the whole, was it Rudyard Kipling who said that if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. I don't remember who said that. Somebody. It wasn't me. So I'm just making sure I don't get any sort of attribution, but not that you would think I said that. But I think that the same is true with this implementation of this technology, right? Like, of course, it's faster just to focus on one and like create this group of specialists that just make this one thing happen. But in our experience in VA specifically, all three of us can probably give very specific and not too distant examples of how something went really well and went really big and got really exciting for a very short period of time. But because there was no integration with other flows, other processes, other people, other technology, it phased out, because you can't keep segmenting and siloing things. We've got to think more in what we're calling digital ecosystems, and I think that's certainly true with this technology and AI as well.
Okay, the last question, which I ask everyone, and that is, if each of you, maybe I think we're getting near the end, so it's got to be fast, but if you had 2 years and unlimited resources to create any VR application, what would it be? Or is it something that's already been done? All right, we got 1 minute left, so got to talk fast.
I want to be really fast. I think that for older people who can't get out of their house, like my dad, I know you're interested in this work as well. My eggs are in that basket, and keep the rest of it going too.
Mine would be, I think it exists, so it's really more seamlessly or more rigorously evaluating the connection between social support in virtual worlds all the way through connecting people to care where they otherwise wouldn't have connected.
Inner world like type stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love that.
I think mine is probably more in line with what Dr. Kirsch said. I'd love to see a product that could be used at home over an extended period of someone's life that really allows you to better track declines in function, declines in cognition, you know, those minute little changes in their health over time just from using a gamified solution of some kind on a daily basis. You know, I'd love to see something like that so that we're really looking more at preventative medicine rather than treating something once it's already like shown its ugly head, you know? So I'd love to see something like that.
We need to put together a startup. All
Don't
right,
tempt us.
Sherry.
Don't tempt us.
Okay, well, it's time to open it up for some questions and answers. As a reminder, participants joining from the webinar can directly ask a question through the Q&A window, while participants from the YouTube live stream can also ask questions in the live chat. I have a few questions for you right now that I will read through, and then I think one of these we've already kind of covered a bit during the discussion, which is when the new administration changes in January 2025, can you give some insight regarding would this have any impact on federal funding cuts besides possibilities of losing federal employees within the Department of Veterans Affairs? I ask this question because the Immersive team has come so far and well. So any additional comments on that? Like I said, I think you covered a bit of this before.
I would just say that I have to still believe that when there's something that does not take physician time that can augment the way that a person lives in a healthier way at home and is supportive to veterans, I really have to still believe it will continue to be supported.
Anyone else? Okay.
And we're going to fight on.
That's
you know,
right.
Yes.
that's the USC slogan, fight on. We're going to make that the VA slogan too.
That's right.
Okay, next question. Hello all. What a great session. I am designing assisted collaboration, reducing silos between interventionists and seeking best practices and co-designing XR for optimal well-being with conversational AI to integrate and train the trainers for new jobs of the future in collabs to enhance new learning at the intersection between scientists, scale-ups, academics, and leading XR immersive tech and medicinal media. I agree that we need a collaborative, integrated, unsiloed environment. Any comments on that?
Here, here.
Yeah.
We agree.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds
All right.
great.
This is always, I mean, that's always at the core of this kind of technology development is the need for interdisciplinarity. There's no one field that can do it all,
Right.
and that you've got to be able to work together. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about the application that your questioner is proposing.
Well, this person added on and said, I agree with Dr. Skip Rizzo that we need to fund a startup to address these complex issues and build a more supportive environment. So perfect. Let me see here if there are any additional questions. No, I think we have all of the questions that we have so far, and we're very near to the end. So I do want to offer each of you very quickly, if you have any parting words that you'd like to say, any closing comments, and that includes you, Skip, but we'll start with Dr. Kirsch. Any closing comments for the people?
It's honestly been my honor and pleasure to work with not only the VA people, but the people that Dan and Caitlin have introduced me to. It has really just made this work seem most of the time like it's just, we're having a blast. It truly feels like that.
It's great, and it shows. So thank you. Anne?
Oh, yeah. So just agree with that. So grateful for the collaboration we've gotten to do together. And also, I know we know that you all are kept up at night sometimes too. So don't give up. We are exactly as Skip said, we are all leaning in and we are so much further than we were even just a year ago. So we can do this and we'll do it better together. So hang in there.
Great work.
Keep going.
Thank you. Caitlin?
I guess I would just add that, for all of us that are involved in this space, whether it's healthcare, industry, academia, other government agencies, to remain, passionate and patient and persistent, because I think together we can really make a difference. It's been so exciting to see this technology change and emerge over time. And I really think the passion for this can be infectious, like Dr. Kirsch's experience, after just one heads and headsets moment. And then you get to start hearing all these amazing impact stories and experience firsthand or hear about it from colleagues. And I love that as soon as Anne and I really started entering this space and really starting to communicate with academia and industry, that it really just felt like this little family, this whole alternate world where all of us were just family and working toward a common goal. I think we both felt that way after the first time we went to IVRA. But working with folks like Skip and Walter and Jeremy, with other industry partners we've worked with for years, all of our colleagues in VA, it's an exciting time to be involved in all this.
Thank you. You're all an inspiration. Definitely.
I would say that
yeah.
there's a commonality among people that have a passion for this field, that they have a big heart, that they have a good mind, and they have the drive to be persistent and to keep moving forward. And those are the folks I like to hang out with. So it's a great time and a great group. And Thanksgiving is coming. I've got my holiday cup here with a Fireball mug. I hope you guys have plans for Thanksgiving, sharing it with family and friends, and that things in North Carolina are getting better for you guys there and everything. And it's been a friggin' joy to hang out with you. As I said before, this is like hanging out in a bar and having a beer and talking about our favorite topic. And that's how it's been for this last hour or so. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And once again, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for joining this episode of Immersive Tech Talk. I hope you've learned from our amazing guest today. Special thank you to Dr. Susan Kirsch, Dr. Ann Lord Bailey, and Caitlin Rawlins. And of course, a thank you again to our incredible host, Skip Rizzo. For our audience, the video recordings of this event will be available on our YouTube channel. So please feel free to share it with anyone who might be interested in the topic. We look forward to seeing you again at our next event and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you again.